He killed, ate his victim, and still walked free. This is the story of Issei Sagawa, the man the world called the Japanese cannibal. In June 1981, a quiet Japanese student named Issei Sagawa was studying literature in Paris, France. He was small, polite, and seemed harmless. But behind his calm smile was a dark obsession. He invited his classmate, a Dutch woman named Renee Hartevelt, to his apartment for dinner and study. While she was reading poetry, Sagawa took out a rifle and shot her in the neck. She died instantly. For the next 2 days, Sagawa mutilated and cannibalized her body. He later said he wanted to absorb her beauty because he felt weak and inferior. He was caught when police found him trying to dump her remains in a park. Sagawa confessed to everything, showing no guilt. But French authorities declared him legally insane, and he was sent to a mental institution instead of prison. 5 years later, he was deported back to Japan. And since the case was already closed in France, Japanese authorities couldn't charge him again. Sagawa walked free. He later became a minor celebrity in Japan, writing books and appearing in interviews. Issei Sagawa died in 2022, never showing true remorse. The man who once claimed he wanted to feel complete left behind one of the most disturbing stories in modern history. November 25, 1988, 17-year-old Junko Furuta was walking home from her part-time job in Misato, Japan. A group of 4 teenage boys, led by Hiroshi Miyano, kidnapped her. They brought her to a house in Adaki, Tokyo, a place that would become her prison. For 44 days, Junko was beaten, starved, and tortured. She was burned with cigarettes, forced to drink her own urine, and assaulted countless times. Neighbors heard strange noises, but no one dared to report it. The boys were linked to the Yakuza. Junko begged for her life. She even wrote letters to her parents, never sent. By day 40, her body was barely holding on. On January 4, 1989, she died from her injuries. To hide the crime, the boys stuffed her body inside a 55-gallon drum filled with concrete and abandoned it. Police later found her after one of them confessed. They were all tried as minors. The maximum sentence was just 20 years. A punishment many say never came close to justice. Today, Japan remembers Junko Furuta as the girl who endured 44 days of hell. Her story is one of the darkest reminders of how evil silence can be. He was tall, polite, and well-spoken. People called him a gentle giant. But behind that calm voice hid one of the most chilling killers in American history. His name was Edmund Kemper, born in California in 1948. His childhood was filled with abuse and isolation. By age 15, he killed both his grandparents, just to see how it felt. After years in a mental hospital, doctors declared him rehabilitated. They released him at 21. But what followed proved he was far from cured. Between 1972 and 1973, Kemper picked up female college students who were hitchhiking. He drove them to remote areas, killed them, and took their bodies home. There, he dismembered them and performed unspeakable acts. For months, police had no idea who the killer was. Kemper even hung out at local bars with officers, talking about the case like he was just another curious citizen. But in April 1973, he turned himself in after murdering his own mother and her best friend. He confessed calmly, giving every detail without emotion. Kemper was sentenced to life in prison, where he remains to this day. He became known as the co-ed killer, a man who looked harmless, but hid a monster within. He was known as the friendly neighborhood clown. People called him Pogo, the man who brought laughter to children's parties, but behind that painted smile hid one of America's most disturbing killers. His name was John Wayne Gacy, born in Chicago in 1942. By the mid-70s, he was a successful contractor and community volunteer. No one knew that, at night, he was hunting. Between 1972 and 1978, Gacy lured young men and teenage boys to his home with promises of work or money. Once inside, he'd handcuff them, claiming it was a magic trick. Then he tortured and murdered them. For years, he hid their bodies beneath his own house. But after 15-year-old Robert Piest went missing in December 1978, police followed the trail straight to Gacy. During a search, officers uncovered a nightmare. 26 bodies buried in his crawlspace and 7 more found elsewhere. In total, 33 victims. Gacy was arrested, convicted, and sentenced to death. He showed no remorse, even joking about his crimes. On May 10, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection. His final words, "Kiss my ass." The man who once wore a clown's mask to entertain became one of America's most unforgettable monsters. He looked quiet, polite, someone you'd never suspect. But behind that calm face, Jeffrey Dahmer hid one of the darkest secrets in American history. Born in 1960 in Wisconsin, Dahmer started showing strange behavior from a young age. He was fascinated with dead animals, collecting bones and preserving them. No one knew it was the start of something far worse. Between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer murdered 17 men and boys. He lured them into his apartment, drugged them, and killed them. But what truly shocked the world was what came next. He dismembered their bodies and kept their remains. Some victims were even kept in acid barrels, others inside his freezer. In July 1991, one man managed to escape. He led police straight to Dahmer's apartment, where they found human remains, skulls, and photographs of his crimes. Dahmer confessed to everything. He said he never wanted his victims to leave him, so he tried to make them stay forever. He was sentenced to 15 life terms in prison. But in 1994, another inmate beat him to death inside the prison gym. Jeffrey Dahmer's case remains one of the most disturbing in modern history. A reminder that true monsters can hide behind the most ordinary faces. In 2008, a young mother named Casey Anthony told everyone her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee, was missing. But what came next became one of the most shocking trials in the United States. For 31 days, Casey didn't report her daughter missing. She went out partying, got a tattoo that said Bella Vita, which means beautiful life, and acted like nothing was wrong. When her mother finally called the police, Casey claimed a babysitter had kidnapped Kaylee. But that story quickly fell apart. Investigators found signs of decomposition and traces of chloroform in the trunk of her car. 6 months later, Kaylee's remains were discovered in a wooded area near their home, wrapped in a blanket and placed inside a trash bag. Prosecutors said Casey killed her own daughter to live freely. But the defense argued that Kaylee drowned accidentally and Casey panicked. After a long, emotional trial, the jury found her not guilty of murder in 2011, only guilty of lying to police. The verdict shocked the nation. Today, Casey Anthony lives a quiet life in Florida, still claiming she had nothing to do with her daughter's death. And Kaylee's name remains a symbol of a justice many believe never came. In the small town of Plainfield, Wisconsin, everyone thought Ed Gein was just a quiet, strange man who mostly kept to himself. He helped neighbors, did odd jobs, and rarely caused trouble. But inside his old farmhouse, something unthinkable was waiting to be found. Ed was born in 1906. His childhood was dark, his father was violent, and his mother ruled the house with fear. She taught him that women were sinful, that the world was filled with evil, and that only she was pure. When she died, Ed lost the only person he had ever truly obeyed. From that moment, his mind began to fall apart. He spent years alone, visiting graveyards at night, digging up bodies that reminded him of his mother. He'd take the corpses home, using their skin and bones to create disturbing decorations, furniture made of human parts, masks made from faces. He even admitted he wanted to sew himself a woman's suit so he could become his mother again. In November 1957, a woman named Bernice Worden disappeared from her hardware store. Police followed the trail to Gein's house. What they found inside was beyond imagination. Human remains everywhere, like pieces of a horror movie brought to life. Gein confessed to killing 2 women and robbing graves for years. He was declared insane and sent to a mental institution, where he stayed until his death in 1984. His crimes would go on to inspire some of Hollywood's most terrifying villains: Norman Bates from Psycho, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs. Ed Gein didn't just change true crime history. He changed horror forever. He was called the Night Stalker, a man who brought terror to California in the mid-80s. He didn't just kill, he made people fear the dark itself. His name was Richard Ramirez. Born in Texas in 1960, he grew up surrounded by violence, drugs, and death. By the time he moved to Los Angeles, something inside him had already snapped. Between 1984 and 1985, he broke into homes at night. No pattern, no mercy. He attacked men, women, and children. He worshipped Satan, leaving behind pentagrams as his mark. For months, no one knew who he was. Until a fingerprint left at one scene revealed his name. The city turned on him, posters, news alerts, everyone was watching. When Ramirez was finally spotted on the street, a crowd chased him down and held him until police arrived. He was convicted of 13 murders and sentenced to death. He died in prison in 2013, still showing no regret. He called himself the Night Stalker. But to his victims, he was something worse, a living nightmare that came when the lights went out.